Hello. We're here talking all things trisomy. Today's a special day. We've got Alyssa Meyerhofer. She's joining with us. Now, Alyssa, you're not just well, there's a lot of titles that you carry. You're a
That
nurse.
is very true.
So you'll have to tell us a little bit more, but I'll because I won't do it justice. But you're an author. I've got your book here. So
Yes.
we'll talk a lot about your book. The book's Mama's Heart, Understanding Love in an Unknown Special Needs World. So I'm jumping right into the cool stuff. You just recently did this book.
Yeah.
So I was rereading it again last night before we were going to meet today. So we'll talk about the book. So you're an author,
hmm
um, you're a speaker, you work at a hospital, you're a nurse, all those things, but you're also a mom, wife. Any, you're just so amazing. And every time I've chatted with you on Zoom calls or meeting you at conference, just really awesome person. So I'm just excited that everybody else gets to get to know you. You've done a one. Oh, did I say public speaker? She also speaks. Alyssa, I'm just excited to talk to you and have you tell your family and Gabby's story and all of that. So anyway, everybody, welcome Alyssa. Thank you
Thank you
for
for
joining
having
us
me.
here. And let's get started. Like, how's things
Yeah.
going for the family? I mean, here in Arizona, it's raining, which is like the first time ever. It's been raining for a couple days. Like, things are awesome. How are things going for you?
They are good. It is cloudy and chill. It's starting to get chilly here I'm in Minnesota, so I'm in southern Minnesota. So I think the temperature is probably like high 30s. Oh, it's 42 here. 42 today.
That's like dead of winter
So
for me here in Phoenix. I love it. Love it.
yeah, we're like -10, -14 in the winter, or like, like that. We have a couple really cold weeks. That's our like low. But otherwise, things are
Well,
good. My husband,
great.
Adam, farms, and so he just finished up wrapping. He's just wrapping everything up right now. So kind of cleaning all the machinery and getting that put away for the winter. Got their crops out, so that's good. So I'm coming out of single mom life. Not really. My husband's very, very good, so I shouldn't say that. But little more teamwork, I guess, right now. And my kids are getting in the school groove, so that's good. Gabby started preschool this year. So she's our daughter with trisomy 9. So she is going 2 days a week now, and that's going really well. So Adam just took her to school this morning and doing
Big
things.
moment. Preschool, just
Yeah.
growing up.
Mm-hmm. She's finally like loving it now, and she was in like a small group room, and she just moved into the general ed room. So that's super exciting. So she's got her AAC device and she's in there. So,
Just the normal struggles of a farmer, nurse, family, busy Minnesotan. Got a little
yep.
twinge of that accent. I love it. We were up in Minnesota for the 2024 conference. It
Mhm.
was fun to be
Yeah, that
there
was our first
in your
conference.
neck of the woods. So there. And so we saw you in Indianapolis. And so things are going
Mhm.
great. So hopefully,
Yeah.
if all things pan out, we never count our chickens before, or the eggs before they hatch. Colorado coming up. So that will be great. Um, Wonderful. Well, I'm just excited in these podcasts. What we really want to do, Soft has two primary missions, or a singular mission, but a two-pronged approach. We want to support families. And one great way to do that is just to acknowledge what other families have done. These diagnoses that come to these families, they are rare, but they aren't new. And what's awesome is that other families are walking that path ahead of each other at different times, at different speeds, at different what have you. But just to be able to hear their stories and to talk through it. So we're so excited to hear about Gabby's story. So we're going to have Alyssa talk all about that. The other thing we want to do is change the narrative. And what better way to do that than have some fun and talk about what's
Yeah.
going on in the trisomy world, especially for trisomy 9
Mhm.
families and children, trisomy 13, trisomy 8, other related disorders. Soft, when you go to conference, you run into a myriad of conditions, with the big three being trisomy 9,
Yeah.
13, and 18. So we're excited. But we've got this. So let's dive in. Like, tell us about, you mentioned Gabby's in preschool. Is that kind of
Mhm.
the highlight right now? So kind of like, How are things going right now? And then let's go back
Yeah.
in time.
Yes. So right now things are going well. She actually just in Minnesota, she's on medical assistance. And so we just had our like revamp of all the paperwork, which is always a huge process. So in Minnesota, they do what something's called Minnesota Choice Assessment. And so we just did that. And Adam in Minnesota has some paid parent. And so because Gabby has had so much growth in the last year in her skills, like that has changed a lot. So he's really not getting very much anymore. Not that it started with that much, but it was like something that was supplemented. And so that has been an interesting process, like kind of like just the mix of, okay, it's like less support, but like looking back at her paperwork, I was like, wow, she's really come so far in like a year. Like she wasn't walking last year. She wasn't really using like a pincher grasp. So be able to like see her walking now and like feeding herself is like huge. So that's super exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
I
that's
mean,
kind of like the big thing right now, like just kind of wrapping all of that up.
like, did
Um,
you just talking about walking? Did you know? Like, was that? Let me warn the whole audience and you. You are a nurse, and other
mhm,
parents with special need kids become experts, sometimes even at a knowledge more than their pediatrician or
mhm.
others. I'm that average guy. I'm that average dad. So, was that something when it came to walking? Was that something that you knew would eventually happen? Do most trisomy 9 kids happen? Like, what was kind of the outlook
I
on those big
I think
milestones?
it's a huge unknown, and that's the hardest thing. And I think learning to accept the unknown and being okay that you're not going to know is hard. But I think once you do accept that you don't know, it gets easier. So we don't really go in there. We don't really go in with any like, okay, she's going to do this, this, and this, or by this age. There's guidelines out there. So Unique has like basically when we got diagnosed, our geneticists told they're like, we don't know anything about this. We've never seen it. Here's this one document that we have. And that was from Europe from Unique. And so in that document, there's a table that has some like milestones. And so that was really reassuring. So in that table, it does talk about like, okay, the average age of walking is 3. And so she probably started walking right before she turned 3, but I think there's such a huge range. There's some kids that are walking, there's some kids that are not. There's some kids that are talking, there's some kids that are not. So I think just going in and just, taking it as it comes is huge. For us, we started therapy. We were very lucky to live where we live, and we're at like the number one healthcare center in the world. So I think that when we got diagnosed, we, um, or even before she got diagnosed, I think if we would have been at like a rural setting, it would have been like, oh, she's not meeting her milestones. Just give her some more time. She'll get there. Where like they were very proactive. And getting all the right people involved, which I think was huge. So we started physical therapy at like she was probably 2.5 months, I would say, when we started physical therapy, and then we did physical therapy and then maybe started occupational therapy when she was maybe like a year, but we did that for every other week for probably over 3 years, and then she also did a couple bursts of intensive physical therapy. So she did some like, last January, we did 5 days a week for 4 weeks, and I think going into that, I was like, "Oh my god," like, she was starting to walk, she was using a gait trainer, and so we knew at that point that she likely was or, like, she was gonna walk, but it was just a matter of time of, like, getting her there. And going into that, I was like, "Oh, she's maybe like she'll be walking, at the end of this." And then the farther I got, I was like, "No, she's not gonna be. Like, there's no like she won't be." Um, but I think just she gained so much strength through that, and then she was able to get, a few months out, then you could really see the progress that she made during intensive. So that was nice. But yeah, we've done a lot of therapies and now we're currently working on speech. So now sees speech like I found a home speech that takes secondary MA. And so she gets home speech once a week, and then she also gets speech at school 2 times a week. So that's kind of like our new focus.
That's
So
awesome. Those milestones are so big. I have my older sister, Carrie, had trisomy 18, and I was significantly younger than her. And when she passed away, but I have a younger sister. My folks adopted a sister, Savannah. She had hydrocephaly, which led to um, having just limited range of capabilities. And yeah, we never knew like that delayed learning how to walk and things. But when it happens, and learning basic sign language, you learned a few words and what have you. Man, it just blows your mind
oh,
when you
yeah.
see those PT. I remember the physical therapists coming in every day, the OTs, she had this team of people,
Mhm.
and you get to know these therapists. And so even as a sibling, I got to see like how much work can go into this, and then how much fun it is as a family. We were just like
Oh, yeah.
rolling when she was walking around the room.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, she kinda started taking, I would say her first, like, more independent steps was at my brother-in-law's wedding, and so that was fun, like, just
Awesome.
because there was so
Like
many
everybody.
people and she was, like, just on her feet, like, all weekend, so kind of, like, in the grass, and yeah, it was really cool to see, like, the beginning of the weekend, and then she walked the event center was, kind of like on a fairground setting, and so she had, like, a lot of grass and, like, rocks she was walking in, like, all weekend, and then to see, 5 days later, she, like, walked in the grass, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe she just did that." Like, so crazy to see the progress sometimes. And, like,
Probably had a
signing.
crowd cheering. Yeah.
Like, the last couple weeks, she just started signing all of a sudden more, like, she's, like, using so many more words in sign language, which is really cool.
And super
So
helpful, right? Like awesome.
yes, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. She'll sign, like, help
Fantastic.
now whenever she wants, like well, obviously when she wants help, but then when she wants me to pick her up, she's always signing please, and that's, like, her please pick me up kinda thing. So,
Those are
super exciting.
yes, you're bringing back great memories. Savannah, but yes, Gabby, here we go. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing back awesome memories of Savannah. Anyway, so
Mhm.
Gabby
Oop.
is walking, learning some signs, but let's go back in time to when you first learned that there might be complications. Now, did you learn about them in pregnancy? When did you hear about them? Like, just kind of go back to those early
Yeah,
days
go back to my
if you're
beginning of
comfortable
their
with it.
story.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do it.
So, I had COVID when I was pregnant, and it's not related to that, but, at that time, the Mayo Clinic was seeing that, placentas were giving out early in your pregnancy, and so they were doing extra studies that were not being done nationally, and so I was also over 35, and so at the beginning of my pregnancy, or like midway, they started doing like ultrasounds and stress tests more frequently. And then guidelines kind of changed and they were like, I don't think we need to do this. Like, we're not seeing as much anymore. And so, but they continued and set like initially when we started, it was going to be like every week. And then towards the end, it ended up being every other week. So they would do like a stress test one week and like an ultrasound the next, stress test, ultrasound. So everything seemed to be normal and that like our anatomy ultrasound was fine. They did, I feel like, have some like they questioned some cardiac stuff, but it was never brought up to us. I mean, they took a long time on the exam, on the cardiac exam, but I don't think there was really anything that they really felt at that point that was concerning. And then when I was at 38 weeks pregnant, they realized that she had fluid on her kidneys. And so that was like our first inkling that something was going on. And they're like, well, like we're not going to do anything at this point. You're just going to deliver and then we'll go from there. We'll probably get like an ultrasound right after she's born, maybe before she leaves the hospital. And so that was kind of what we were thinking. She was born, I got induced because I was over 30 or over 35. I think that was the reason I got induced. And so I got induced at 39 weeks. That was the first time I had been induced. So that was and labor was fine. It was a harder labor, and I kinda wonder she had, we'll kind of talk about this in a minute, but she had torticollis in her neck. And so I don't know if that's why the delivery was harder too, because maybe she was so tight in the neck and couldn't, you know, have a clear pathway out. So then she was born. Adam and I, the first thing I noticed was her ear when she was born. It was very like cupped. And I didn't think anything of it. Her one ear is more cupped than the other. Didn't really think anything of it. Just that it was like, a little more cupped than my other kids. But otherwise I didn't really notice anything. Then kind of so after you deliver, then you like move rooms at Mayo. And so then you go into like a recovery area or like where you stay the rest of your stay. So then pediatrics came to see us there. And so they were like, which is standard for everybody. They do their assessment and they're like, well, she has curved fingers. So she has clinodactyly. So her pinky fingers are like curved like this. And she's like hyper jointed kind of. And so they're like, well, she has curved fingers. Her nipple line is a little wider. She has wider set eyes, and her ears are more cupped and lower. But they're like, this could be like related, but it could be completely unrelated because your kidneys and your ears form at the same time in utero. And so they were like, maybe, maybe not. Like, we'll send you to genetics. And for us, genetics was like a 3-month out wait. And in the meantime, she had passed her hearing test on peds and the audiology tech or whoever does the newborn hearing test. She had like her cartilage wasn't as formed. And so they were like, well, you could like brace that, and you put like a little plastic like brace in there and then kind of tape the ear down and like let it form as she grows over the first couple weeks. We did end up doing that. And so that was like, we worked with plastics for that. I think going in, if we would have known she had trisomy 9, I don't think we would have necessarily done that, but we didn't know that at that point. And kind of fast forward, she started getting outer ear infections, which were very odd. And so I had went to the clinic and it kind of was like her ear would like swell and then like drain. And so they were like, we can't see her eardrum. We're going to send you to the ED for imaging. Well, I'd never even been to the ED with my other kids. So I was like, oh gosh. So we took her to the ED. They couldn't see her eardrum because one of the features of trisomy 9 is really narrow ear canals. Of course, we didn't have a diagnosis at this time. And so they're like, well, we can't see her eardrum. She's so little. Like, we think that, obviously she has an infection. We'll just treat it prophylactically. At this point, she was also on antibiotics for her kidneys because they prophylactically put her on, they didn't know. So they also had done kidney studies, she had done some contrast studies like the week after she was born, and they couldn't really tell if she had reflux because she was so little at that point. And so they could see that she had fluid on her kidneys, but they couldn't tell with the contrast if it was actually like refluxing. And so they just put her on like prophylactic antibiotics. So she was already on antibiotics at the time she got the ear infection, just a very low dose. So they were like, we'll just, instead of that, we're just going to put her on a higher dose of antibiotics and we'll go from there. Follow up with your primary. So then she got another ear infection like 2 weeks off. After she was off antibiotics for like 2 weeks, she got another ear infection. They were like, this is, very rare. We're going to follow up with ENT. Found out then that so to see ENT, you had to have an an audiogram. And like I said earlier, she had passed her newborn screening. So then so I'm thinking like, okay, we're just jumping through hoops, right? We got to jump through this hoop to get to the next thing. So then she has the audiogram and she wasn't hearing, and I didn't even we didn't know. And so then they were like, well, she really isn't hearing very well. But they were so nice when they gave us like the results that I didn't even know how bad it was. Like, they were just like so like good. They were so like professional and gentle when they gave us the results. They were like, you'll come back in like 6 weeks. So I come back in 6 weeks and they're like, yeah, she's really not hearing very much. And then I had returned to work and I worked 12-hour shifts. So I had worked like 3 days and not seen her. And when I said hi to her, she didn't respond to me. Like, she didn't return. Typically, an infant would like turn and like find your face, and she never did that. And then she didn't react until she actually like saw my face. So then I was like, okay, she's really not hearing. And so then we
Does
ended
that
up,
does that happen where there was, because she passed the test at birth, like when they're doing that during
mhm.
post
I'm not
labor,
really sure. Yeah.
or is
I'm
it,
not,
there's so many. I know it's kind of
yeah.
a
I have
fast
no
paced couple
idea.
days.
Right. She did pass it, whether maybe I don't know what, like, the false positive is on those kind of tests, I'm not sure. I kinda wonder, like, was it truly accurate? I don't know, maybe? So
Minutes old and
right.
interesting. But so that's what, when you went back to another testing and then another testing, I was like, this is definitively she's not
Mm,
hearing.
yeah.
Okay.
So then we ended up getting so she ended up getting tubes because she had, like, in fluid behind her eardrum. So then she got tubes placed for that, and then that has really helped her hearing. Soon here, she's going to be going under some sedation, and we'll do they did a ABR, which is an auditory brainstem response test at that point, just to make sure that she had the nerves and that was all normal. So she does have hearing. It's hard to get like a behavioral test in like an infant, even now to a 3-year-old, like it's all like if they want to cooperate or not. So she does have normal hearing in at least one ear. We know that for sure. So it'll be
That's good.
interesting to
I mean,
see.
that's a
Yeah.
huge, huge thing.
Yeah.
Now,
And then
keep going. Yeah, keep us going.
so she had the hearing. Then we followed up with I feel like we see all the teams. So we found out she had her head was very misshapen. And so then after the ED visit, we got they still wanted imaging. So they did, because they were also worried about like the hearing and her mastoid, because if you get an ear infection and it travels to the mastoid, it can like affect your hearing permanently or something like that. And so they did a neck ultrasound, and then they found out that she had a benign tumor in her neck, called fibromastosis coli, and that is a soft tumor in her neck. So then that's how we started PT so early, because that's a soft tissue tumor. So the point was, if we do enough PT right away, it would like break up. And so we started PT, and then with her head misshapen, then we got a helmet. So we had a helmet, and we had 2 helmets, and we did that for she started early in the helmet process, much earlier than they typically do. Typically, I think they wait till they're like 4 or 5 months, and she started at like 3 and a half, 4, I would say. And then she had a helmet for, I don't know, 11, 10 months probably. Then she has a lazy eye, so then we saw, ophthalmology, we see ortho, she has hip dysplasia, so that was found when we had our 9-month check, and so we see
Now, are
ortho.
all these
She hip
things?
braces?
Oh, she does. Okay.
Yeah, so she wore a hip brace for, like, 3 years, and so it was a rhino brace, so it, like, would abduct her hips. And so she did that, and then we say cardiac, we had like like I had followed up. This was more me being an advocate. And so no, from the unique resource, there like I can't remember how many percent. I want to say like 20% of kids have cardiac issues. And so I was like, "Hey, do you feel like we should do an echo?" And so we did do the echo, and I'm trying to think what that first echo came back as. I think the echo was for the most part normal. I think she had a patent, ovale, and so but that can typically close on its own. So then we were just gonna follow up with cardiology in, like, a year. Well, then she had the next cardiology appointment, and her bottom of her aorta is dilated, so now we're watching that too. But so, yeah, I feel like we see, like, I don't know, all the
Yeah.
teams.
I mentioned you mentioned in kind of some write up and kind of story. You had a lot of appointments that first year. I think the number was like 119, 118 or something.
Yeah, I feel like we
Um,
averaged like 100 and I think last year was like 136 or something like that. 100 and
Now
low 40s, I can't remember.
you talked about the unique website in that article. We'll have that listed here with this, and I might even cut to a screenshot of it. Me and my editors
Yeah.
are good. But that's an awesome
Mhm.
document. A number of families with trisomy 9 have told me about that. So we'll have links to that
Mhm.
on the website coming up. But we'll link to it here in this video. So that was an awesome document. But let me ask you this, as you're talking about hip dysplasia and some others, are those all we said earlier as we were chatting that not everything is the same for every kid. I think that's kind of what we were talking about.
Mhm.
Is that the
Yep.
same thing here? Like the benign tumor, some of this other item, those are all just
Yeah.
kind of
I think
Gabby's
yes.
trail.
I think
And
every
not,
kid is, like, so different with trisomy 9. I think it also maybe depends even if you have a kid that's, like okay, so Gabby is, like, 80% duplicated on her gene, on her ninth chromosome. The short arm is, like, 80% duplicated. You could have the same kid, and they could have completely different, you know, si features, I guess you could say. So I feel like it's really hard to compare. I feel like a lot of trisomy 9 kids are maybe have, like, feeding issues, which Gabby had a hard time, when she was born, like, breastfeeding, like, sucking. She would, like, latch really well, but then she didn't have the stamina to, like, actually keep going. And so, um, I think some kids can maybe get that latch and some kids can't figure it out, so they end up with a feeding tube and then potentially, like, a G tube. Gabby fortunately never had that, but I know that it's common for, some kids to have that. So, also, like, speech, I think some kids are talking and some kids aren't, or it's, delayed. Some kids are walking, some kids aren't.
now tell I know like you're in we'll say the industry, you're a nurse, you kind of
Mhm,
see the situation where families and parents cope with, unique challenges. We all have our own unique, all of us as individuals. But with a special needs parent, like go back to those early days. If you're willing to kind of talk about maybe the
mhm,
emotional side or the mother side, your
yeah.
book is so well written. Like, how did you deal with that? I know you can like kind of get into the medical lingo and talk shop because that's what you do for a living. But tell me about that
I
side as a
think
mom, as a parent.
so in my book, I kinda reference this too, but you wouldn't know it if you didn't, like, know the background of it. So in my book, there's a page on it that talks about the coffee shop, and it talks about, like, finding someone that you can really share all of your, like, deep feelings with that you are afraid not to be, like, judged by, and finding that person. So when I was, like, 8 weeks pregnant, we were trying, and then, like, the week we decided that we were done, then we were pregnant. And so it was kind of like, "Oh, man, like, are we gonna be a like, can we do this? Like, are we really gonna be able to handle this financially, emotionally?" And we I had such mixed emotions, which we had been trying, so it's not like we weren't trying, But then when I was in those really first early weeks, I had such difficult emotions and, like, I don't necessarily tell people this, but I was like, "Okay, if I would lose the baby right now, would I really be upset or would I be okay with it?" And I don't know. I really wonder, I'm like, did my body know that something was off and that was me just, like, playing through things? And then once we had announced our pregnancy and, like, told people, then all those feelings went away. And I'm not sure, it was just really odd that I had those feelings, and I don't know. So, I always like to mention that because I feel like, you know, you it's okay to have those, like, dark feelings or, like, even if you did know a diagnosis and, like, you didn't know what your journey was gonna be, like, it's okay to have those mixed feelings. Like, it's not a reflection of, like, who you are, or if you're a bad parent because you're thinking these things. I think even all parents have, like, can I those, self-reflections of yourself. So, yeah, I think
Parenthood.
that really in the beginning, and then yeah, I think those were my main ones in the beginning.
And then, I mean, you talked about being an
And then when we
advocate.
found out, we didn't find out until later. So we didn't find out till she was, like, 5 months old, and so I can talk a little bit about our diagnosis, like, us actually finding out. Um,
I'd be
so
very
when
interested with
we
that.
Yeah, so we met with genetics when she was, like, 3 weeks old, and I felt like I kinda had to, like, state my case, and just be like, "I think this is why we need a genetics consult." She's not hearing. And so then they were like, "Okay, yeah, well," I think the hearing thing really tied it in for them, so they're like, "Okay, something we'll send it off." So you have to send it off. You do the blood test and then they send it off for a couple weeks. Or so it's like I think it was gonna be like 8 weeks, and I think we ended up getting it back a little bit early. And so when it got back, I'll never forget, it was a Friday morning at like 11 o'clock, and it showed up on the portal. So, like, our medical record portal. And, it was very generic. It wasn't from, like, our institution. It was from, wherever they sent it out. So, it, I think, was more blunt probably. So, it was like mental retardation, facial abnormalities, short stature, uh like cognitive delays, those kinds of things. And I was like in my cart, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, first of all, I can't believe that this just like popped up on the portal, which there's a law about that. And so the law is the patients get the information like as soon as possible. And so that's why that happened. But it's still a hard thing, to like get that information over a portal first when it's, such a significant thing in your life. And so Friday, 11 a.m., and I was like, "Okay, I'm either gonna hear by the end of the day or I'm not gonna hear until Monday." Like, somebody will call me by the end of the day or they will not call me until, like, Monday. Like, I get that. So, end of the day came, didn't hear anything, so I was like, "Okay, they're gonna call me Monday." Monday came and went. I didn't hear anything. Tuesday came and went. Wednesday came, and then I was like, "Okay, like, I feel like I should have heard, like, somebody should have called me." So Wednesday afternoon, I messaged our primary doctor, and it was never tagged like to her. And so she had no idea until I reached out to her because it was tagged to the geneticist, and then he ended up like being on vacation or something. So when the result came back, he was the only one that was like tagged in the result. So she had no idea. So then she calls me on like Thursday afternoon and she was like, "Hi, Alyssa." She's like, like, "I saw the result and I just want to talk to you about it. Like, how are you feeling about it?" She's like, "I really have never heard of this. And so, I, you know, will look into this and I will find out what I can for you." And then by that time, like we had already been searching. So I think within the next couple days, we had found the unique um, pamphlet or the booklet. And so then we had already known like some information. So then she was like working on it. Then like I think it had been like a week or a week and a half and we went to a PT appointment which is also linked to our physical medicine and rehab, and one of the doctors is like super amazing there, and she knew that I think in PT we had said no one had talked to us about this yet, like we don't know anything, and then a doctor pulled us into her office and like really like sat down and like talked to us about it, which was like super like helpful, and I don't think like she necessarily needed to do that, which was pretty amazing. And so um yeah, so that's kind of how that like happened, and then we
What
just kinda took
what's
it from there. I think we did a lot of like tried to find resources, but then when we finally met genetics, I mean, they basically didn't have any information that we didn't know. They were like, "Well, this is the resource for you. This is all we have." And that was it.
It seems
So that
common with
was
trisomy 9. Like, it's
finding out
just
later, or what do you mean?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
with
so. I
I
think
think
because they
I
don't
mean,
have like not that they don't have major organs affected, but I don't think it's to the scale that it is with 13 and 18, especially like the cardiac, I think. And so I think that is why it gets diagnosed also like later.
yeah, it
Or
doesn't
because
pick up
they,
on
they don't necessarily have unless maybe they have breathing problems and would need like oxygen requirements or like a NICU stay. I feel like typically they wouldn't have like a genetics consult right, away
not early. Yeah.
until they start missing milestones, you know? And then I think depending where you are, I think those depending on how rural you are or, your primary, like, are they okay with referring you to like a higher level of care? So like RNP, the minute she found out, she was like, I just want you to know that I can continue to take care of you, but I think that it would be great if you worked with, this pediatrician in our office that, has more pediatrician like focus versus like a family NP. So her being able to, I think, accept her comfortability in a role was huge too to get us the care that we needed.
How has Gabby's journey, like walking it with her, has changed you as a person, as a mom, as a career nurse? Like, are there things you'd be willing
Oh,
to share with
completely.
that?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I am like a different person. I think just more awareness of situations and the difficulty that other people have. I think I'm more, as a fellow parent, like, okay, just this is an example from the other day. I dropped my kids off at gymnastics, or we were leaving gymnastics. There was a mom with like 4 kids, and this one kid just like took off, kind of like eloped, but didn't go out the door. And she's struggling, right? And so I was like, my kids were like, okay. And so I got a hold of this kid, like talked to him, like kind of like distracted him a little bit. And then I was like, hey, let me help you walk to the car and I'm going to help you get in the car. And so I like walked from like the Y that we were at to her car. And, like things like that, I don't necessarily know if I would have like helped her necessarily, but I think just knowing how difficult it is in that. And then other things, I think just being more aware as a nurse, I think when we do have patients with disabilities that are on like an adult general care floor, um, I'm really think like, for example, we have some nonverbal patients that come in. And so like, okay, what are their nonverbals? What's going on that they can't communicate to me? What or she was signing and people weren't picking up on that. And so, being able to like interact with her on like a different level and like pick up like, okay, this is like, oh, she's itching here. Like, what's going on? Why is she doing that? Why does she keep doing that? Like, what can we do to, okay, I have to place an IV. What can I do to make that the easiest for her in the situation? What are my resources to help her? I think also we have child life where I work. And so like if families have really young kids, I think going the extra step and if child life is not available to see them, what can I do to help them? So like making a play kit, finding a disposable stethoscope, finding some gloves, giving them a little syringe, like making them a little like something like, oh, I wear this mask in here. Like you can wear this mask too, and you can listen to your mom's lungs or things like that. I think I go an extra step like to help. I think other things I do, um, I took a 12-week intensive parenting class through an autism foundation. And not that Gabby has autism, but I feel like with trisomy 9, or I'm sure other trisomies feel that way too, is there's not a ton of resources besides soft and a few other things. I feel like you have a lot of autism resources and you have a lot of Down syndrome resources because they get the most funding, right? They're getting funding, or they're able to raise funding. So what I did this 12-week parenting class, and I feel like I learned so much of what was available in my community. And so that was really helpful. And then I was able to give a lot of feedback of resources I had already found, because I had taken it when Gabby was like 2.5. So I had found a lot of resources already, versus some of these other people were like brand new in the diagnosis. And so giving them resources. So now I like guest speak for them probably a couple times a year, just as like a parent advocate and to give resources. And then I also um, have gotten involved in the Pediatric Family Advisory Council, which is like a volunteer council within Mayo Clinic for parents to like help give feedback on topics.
It's awesome.
So,
Th-
yeah. I think getting like that has changed me too, like being more proactive. I think with me working too, like I see situations that happen and I was like, okay, I want this to be Gabby's gonna be here someday, and I want this to be different by the time she gets there. So, like, what can we do to make it better?
that's awesome. Giving back, the community, advocating. The perspective changes. I know just talking to my siblings, or when I go to a conference, it's fun to run into the adults like Andy Van Haraway, or there's a
Mhm.
handful of us that still come. And one of these days, we're going to get like the whole soft conference is going to be all siblings. So I'm going to make it a sibling show. But anyway, just the patience and different perspective that comes with living with, working with, helping with, being a mama, being a dad of a child with special needs, just kind of changes your mindset on life,
Mhm.
and so wonderful
It's
that you
fun to
can
see
help
my
others.
kids. I love to
Yeah,
see the kids, my sibling like, my kids, how their perspective has changed and how, um, willing they are. Like my older daughter, before Gabby got her AAC device, she connected with another young disabled girl that had an AAC device. And they asked us, like, oh, would you be willing to have her name be on her AAC device? And I was like, oh, yes. And so just, I think their willingness to reach out. And I think you see that at conference too, which is one of the reasons why I love conference so much, is like seeing those siblings just like pick up and not not that it's needed, or but I think it's so amazing to see those siblings like just like jump right in and be like, "Oh, I'll help you. Let's go do this." You know?
yeah.
I just love that.
I Yeah, I think it's interesting. You see, like Carson Bradley, just he loves
Yeah.
on every kid. Um,
Yes.
Lizzie herself, but like all these siblings,
Huh?
Amanda Monahan, she's on our video. I should know her first name. I can't think of her. Lily, I think maybe that's her sister's name.
Yes, Lily.
Sorry,
Yep.
whoever's listening, but
I think it's Lily.
they
Yeah.
yeah, you just kind of fall into that. Um, uh, it just becomes part of life, where I'm not around somebody in a wheelchair. I'm not around someone that has nonverbal
Mhm.
communication. But when you are, it's like, yeah, this is normal. Here we go. Hey, what's going on? So,
Mhm.
it's always a special moment to kind of see that and just kind of spread that love that, yeah, we all communicate differently.
Mhm.
Um, and so love that perspective. Let's talk. Um, I kind of want to just, what would you like tell yourself? Like if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself? Do you have any advice for yourself for the past? Be like,
As
hey,
a like a
as
oh
a
yeah.
uh, let's go as a mom perspective. I've learned this as a mom. Your book does it great, by the way. Those of you listening, get her book. You talked about the coffee shop. You talk about these different stages of your motherhood. But what advice would you give? And you definitely can quote
I think
yourself since
that
it's your book.
yeah, I think that you need to take time for yourself and you need to plan it. And if you don't plan it, it's not going to happen. And I think that's in general for, typical families too. But I think it's extra important to plan time with you and your spouse also. But for example, like if I've gone also to like some retreats for caregivers. So finding caregiver resources I think are huge. So there's a couple of different retreats that I have been to that I've been gone. It's like a 2-day retreat. And I feel like sometimes it's like really hard. Like they're like, I can't go because no one can take care of my kids. I'm the only one that, can do it, which I will say, I think it's hard to let somebody in, but once you do it, it gets easier. So, like, actually today, if you would have asked my husband, I don't know, a year and a half ago, when I was trying to get like some more like respite time, he was like anti babysitters. Like, and I wouldn't say he loves it, but he's way more like willing to participate now. Where before he was like, absolutely not. Like, no one's going to do it. Like, we can just stay home. It's fine, And he's a total homebody too. So we're complete opposites. But like later today, I'm interviewing somebody to do what I call respite for me, which is basically maybe like maybe 1 or 2 times a month for like 6 hours, maybe. And it's just me blocking time to like, okay, I'm gonna go get my hair done, or I'm going to sit at the coffee shop and work on stuff. Or I'll block time for like this. So like I'm doing this right now while Gabby's at school. So I like purposely blocked this time and save this, like this is like my time to work on whatever I want to work on. Or like just rest. So like last Thursday when Gabby was at preschool, I'm like really not good at like just sitting. And so like I sat on my couch and watched TV, and I haven't done that in like so long. So I'm like, just sit here and do not move. Like just sit here. And that it was really hard for me because I'm like, oh, I go put this load of laundry away or go pay this bill or whatever. So I think like blocking
Just
time, and I think giving yourself grace. So like when so this fall I made like, I'm really type A. So I made like a to-do list of like when the kids go back to school, all these like little projects I was going to do. And when I labeled it initially, it was like back to school list. And then I was like, this is going to take me way longer than back to school. So it just changed the name of it. So it wasn't like I was like setting myself up for failure. And it was just like, giving myself grace that these things are going to take time, and something that you think is going to be like, oh, this is going to take like, you know, this is going to be a short amount of time. And then it really ends up to be like much longer than you think. So I think you just got to like plan for that too. And I think just trying to remain fluid, like just being able to not get so anxious when things don't go like how you expect them to go. And so just kind of like going with the flow and just, and that sometimes is really hard for me, but just if somebody's not communicating with me well, or I really feel like this person should be doing this, like they should be communicating this with me, I think that's hard. And so like just trying to remind myself, like, just remain fluid. Like everybody's working hard, and don't just assume that they're like not trying to do the right thing also. And then I think another thing to tell people would be like grief. I think grief comes and goes on all different things, no matter what you're going through. And I think that's just part of the process, especially with trisomies in general. So, like, this is just something that happened to our family recently. So, Gabby has an AAC device, and we're very lucky that her outpatient speech, is also the speech therapist that works at her school. So during her appointment, they were like, oh, I'm going into the preschool. We're going to talk about AAC devices. Everybody's going to like I'm bringing a couple different styles. Gabby will be there with hers, and we're going to show like her voice. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so great, because I love just the awareness and the acceptance of it and people learning about it. And so I knew it was happening, but I didn't know when it was happening. Gabby had gotten a sheet, like a paper, just like a worksheet in her folder with no description or anything. And it looked like kind of like a blank calculator. And I was like, "Oh," and there was, like, a sticker on it or, like, a scribble or something. And I was like, "Oh, okay, like, I have no idea what this is," and I just, like, chucked it in the garbage. Then come to find out, it was supposed to be, like, they were designing their own AAC screen. And so then I was like, "Oh," I just felt so, like, sad because if I woulda known that's what it was, I probably would've been like, "Oh, Gabby, look at your AAC that you created," you know, like, we woulda talked about it, but because she's not verbal, she can't tell me about it. And so then I didn't had already thrown it away, and then I didn't find that out for, like, a couple weeks that, like, she like, that's what that was supposed to be, where it was, like, I feel like a missed opportunity for communication. So I feel like just like that grief. And then like last week we had gotten they had made like a little booklet and it was like an about me packet. And so it had like different pictures of maybe like what they like and what's their favorite color and things like that. And I'm sure that they were trying to let her be as independent as possible. But it Adam and I both, our hearts just, like, kinda, like, sunk. There was this page and it was, like, family, like, "This is my family," and it had, like, the faces were, like, cut out with construction paper, and it was blank, so it was, like, 5 blank, like, faces, no stick body or anything, so it was just, like, the 5 little circles, and so we both looked in that, and we're just like, "Oh," like, that is, like, maybe someday she'll be able to do that, but right now she's not there, right? Like, where she can do that. And so it was just kind of like, oh, like, that was really hard, I think. So that grief, like, comes and goes in different things. And I think that's okay, you know? But I think talking about it, I think also not I don't think you just need to connect with somebody with trisomy. Everybody Multiple people with different diagnoses have similar things that are going on. Like, "Oh, you have a feeding tube. Oh, this other child with maybe cystic or, with, like, cerebral palsy or something, they might have a feeding tube." Like, you can connect in different ways. "Oh, you're on MA. I'm on MA too." Like, "Oh, this paperwork is so hard." Like, things like that. You're gonna find similarities in the disability world in general. You don't have to necessarily just stay and connect with the trisomy group, which I think is super valuable. But I think in your community, you're probably going to have more resources if you are reaching out to other groups also, if that makes sense. But I think there's so much value in like coming to conference and connecting and like coming to conference. Like, so we've been to 2 conferences now. And, like, the immediate, like, welcome is something that I can't even explain. Like, just, like, the instant, like, connection with people is amazing, and I think very unique. I don't think you find that many places, and so I would highly recommend going to a conference. Not that you necessarily have to go every year, but there's a lot to get out of it and a lot of and then you meet people and just you can it's everybody says it's like a family that, you know, just added
Agreed.
family.
And it's I call it a soft family reunion.
Yeah.
You meet people. Um, Wonderful experiences, collaboration, just having that togetherness. I think you're right. I hope anyone that can come. I'm going to do my part to fundraise and reduce costs, make it easier, and we'll figure out fun ways over the years to come. But it was always a highlight of mine as a sibling to be there. Met so many wonderful people, and now I get a chance to bring you know, Carrie's nieces and nephew. And so some of my other siblings are going to be coming to this one because it's closer to home for us.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I think my mom's overexcited because it's going to be like all these grandkids at conference. So
Oh,
she's very,
yeah.
but we just hope we can just make it a place that people can feel themselves, get confidence, gain all that. You said a couple of things that I wanted to highlight real quick, about like giving yourself time, and then you talked about respite. I
Mhm.
just gotta like echo that the respite care is something I'm about 6 years older than no, I think I'm older than that, about 10 years older than my younger sister, Savannah, and about 5 years, Devin, I think is 5 years older than her. So there's kind of like the bottom three of us, the last three of our family of six. But I remember as we got a little older, and this might happen to you, Alyssa, as you get older, your kids have some other activities, and it's just, you know, in our case, Savannah needed to be home. Like she couldn't go to a basketball game and
Mhm.
be composed, and it wouldn't be fun for her. She wasn't missing out. And so being able to have a respite provider that's worked with us, been around, you then can do some of those things. So I think as families evolve, it became very obvious. Now, one little side awesome for me was that in Arizona, they changed the rules where family members can qualify to become respite care. So I got
Mhm.
certified, did everything. So after high school, when I turned 18, as in, going to a local community college, kind of just getting some cheap credits under my belt in college, I was my sister's respite provider. So my
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
perspective of just, being in charge, my parents said, "All right, we're going to work. See you later. Make sure everything goes well." And so that
Well, and I
was
think also,
fun,
like,
but also
just
changing my perspective. Go ahead.
yeah. I think also, like, you may not be able to go with your spouse at the same time. I think that's a real, like, struggle for people,
Yeah.
but maybe you need to go separately. And usually when I announce that I'm going somewhere, it's like 9 months in advance to my husband, and I'm like, "All right." My husband and my in-laws are primarily help us the most, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm going out of town here. I will be gone for 3 days. I will come return at this point. You all are aware. Like, plan around that, please, so I can make this happen, you know?"
I think that's too abnormal. My wife does the same thing, and here's a list of
Yeah.
things. I'm one that likes to cook because I'm on a computer all day, so I
Huh?
don't get babied in that department. But other things, schedule, I'm like, okay, now that I got to do this myself. But yeah, a special need child kind of adds to that layers
Mhm.
of
Just
just
adds
things
to
you
the
got to be
mix.
aware of. Yeah,
Yep.
you know, what
Or, like,
equipment do we need to
planning how
have
you're
here,
gonna
or
do
there?
stuff. Yep. How you gonna get out
Yeah.
of the house with one person.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of you to give plenty of preparation notice. All right.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's just awesome that, just how transparent you are about making sure other people, as they walk this path, around you, with you, that you're just saying, these are okay feelings. You're going to have moments of grief that just kind of pop up that you didn't expect, because it'll be like, oh, just your perspective. And every child, you want what's best for them. I dabble in coaching basketball, and the parents' perspective, you just want your kid to do amazing, and you have all this kind of thing. And so there's going to be moments where you find yourself cheering on your child, and just so excited they took that first walk, they did that sign, everything we've been working for. And it might be small to outsiders, but for us, this is a monumental big thing. And then there's the flip side of that, where you kind of have these moments of hope for a future that
Mhm.
may look different. And so those are all good. Those are all feelings. Those are all being human. Those are all being a parent. And I just really appreciate that you just kind of call them out, so people
Yeah.
aren't
And I
feeling
think
bad. Just
we plan ahead, or I'm a total planner. So, like, planning, we don't know what the future looks like. Like, I don't know if Gabby will able to, or, like, will she need a group home, whatever, like, what kind of assistance is she gonna need in the future? I don't know. Obviously, at this point, like, one of the things I grieved the most when I found out our diagnosis was my retirement, and what my retirement looked like, and that sounds probably so odd to people, but it was like my plan was always to retire not super early, but early, like 60, and, um I don't think that's changed, but it definitely looks a lot different than what I pictured it. And also, we live in the country, and so if something happens to my husband and one of my biggest things, which I think this is very common, is if something happens to me, I don't want her to lose her house and her parents and, like, her, like, at the same time. And so, like, what can I do to help her be more independent? And we're always working on things. I think even her, like, at this point, like, learning to walk and feed herself and those kinds of things are making her as independent as possible for the future. But then also, we've kind of dabbled, like, okay, my husband's very anti, like, he's going to take care of her forever. And that's fine. And that might happen. I have no idea. But like at some, I mean, for his life as long as he can, meaning is what I mean by that. But, like, we've thought about, like, okay, do we remodel our house? And we live in the country, so could we put, like, a little, like, apartment on the side of our house? And then she could stay there, like, she could have independence, or that would work towards independence after, like, we wouldn't be on the farm anymore. Things like that. I think those are all things that we, like, mentally are preparing for and financially kinda trying to be like, "Okay, like, if we do this, what does this look like?" You know, kind of things like that. Setting money aside now, I think, just for like, obviously, she can't have money in her name. So, like, if something would happen to Adam and I, you have to be really careful that, like, she doesn't inherit anything that would affect her benefits in the future also. So I think thinking about things like that and, like, you know, that's always, like, a super hard I feel like parents are either, like, proactive and they set it up, or they're like, "Oh, I'm not even going there." Like, it's too much, which it is a lot, I'm not denying that. We're fortunate that with my employer, we have legal insurance, and so I signed up for, like, legal insurance for 1 year, and then we set up, like, a supplemental needs trust and kind of, like, got that all figured out with the lawyer, and so, like, it's in place. I wouldn't say it's necessarily how I wanted it, but it's there, and we can always modify it when we need to, and I'm sure we will, but just that it's in place, I think is good too for the future.
It's great advice.
But,
I
like, all
mean,
that stuff
and
is
look,
really heavy, like, that's a lot of stuff
that's
and I don't think that's something that you can think about, like, when you're in, like, a new diagnosis? I mean, you're probably thinking about it, but you really can't go into those kinda details, I don't feel like,
I mean,
at that
I mean,
point. You're
take a look.
dealing with so many other things,
Agreed. Yeah.
but
And
I think it's
it's
something that you should think about. I also think I have a different perspective being in the healthcare world where I've been in other situations where people don't have things set up, or maybe their spouse has all the access and then the other spouse doesn't, and then it's a huge barrier. And so I think I'm more proactive because I've been in situations and see how sticky they can be. And I really don't want that for whoever's gonna help Gabby. I don't want that. I want it to be as seamless as possible for everybody. So,
I I agree. I think those are all great advice. I mean, those are heavy topics, without a special needs child, but with a special needs child that is so dependent on making sure if tragedy strikes or anything happens, how can they make sure their needs are met? I know how that's a conversation I've had with others, with our own family. So
well, I
definitely
think
great
just like the
advice.
paperwork is like a
Oh
part-time
yeah,
job in itself? Like, I feel like if you unloaded that on someone, like one person, we have multiple people in ours. Like, there's someone that does like medical, financial, and then like I guess the medical and the paperwork are kind of together. But like, it's just a lot? And so I can't even like if something happened to me and Adam, I feel like, you get into like when you're in a relationship, I feel like the family member does certain things. Like each family member does like certain things. So like I don't do any of the lawn. Like if something happens to Adam, my lawn's looking rough.
landscaper is hired.
Yeah. Well,
We've
I
got
live in the
those
country,
same.
so they'd be I would have to figure I would have to learn how to run our lawnmower because yeah, that's a whole nother topic. We have like a zero turn and I can't run that thing to save my life. And so, but yeah, like, but the same thing, if something happened to me, like I have like a kind of a guidebook that I have all of Gabby's stuff in, but like Adam would seriously struggle if something like, like if something like I have it some of it written out, but still there's just so much. And you learn, right? Every time you're in something, every time you fill something out one year, you like learn the next, like kind of like what to expect. So it makes it easier. But
Well, I mean, just great advice, wonderful things that we've talked about. Gabby's hitting milestones, signing, walking, just the journey that's got to here. A lot of doctor's appointments, got, met community at Soft, your network, figuring out how to make time for yourself. All these great things that you've shared with us. But let's talk. Let's kind of wrap things up with like what does it life look ahead for Gabby, for the Meyerhofers? Like, what are you most hopeful for? Like, let's end with some hope. And
yeah. Well, for Gabby specifically, I'm hoping that she's verbally talking. That would be amazing. So we're working towards that. And that she can be as I can make her or help her be as independent as possible. Um, I think for my other girls, my siblings, I love to think about like how Gabby has impacted their journey and where their life is going to go. And I think already I see that. And so I think there's so much more like aware and I love that. And so I just want to see that like develop too. And Adam and I, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Being a team because you need that. I can't imagine we have a great support system, so we're very lucky. But keep being a team and working together.
love that. I mean, the Meyerhofer family, the farmer, the author. Speaking of which, let's put another up here. Plus, we'll put it there. Mama's heart, understanding love in an unknown special needs world. Just how it's broken down from Gabby's eyes or from the daughter's eyes in the story of of
Mhm.
of what she tells her mom. And so, what a
Mhm.
wonderful perspective. Loved it. Um,
Yeah.
and
So the
so,
book is, like, written in real time. Most of it's
yeah,
written in real time. So something would happen, and then I'd be like, "I'm gonna go write this." And so it's kind of like I probably helped, like, with my coping also, but they were things that I wish somebody was telling me on our journey.
yeah.
And
It
so or reminders that I need to keep hearing, if that makes
I
sense.
think that's well put because some of those are, I mean, that some of this advice doesn't go away and you're just going to have to remind yourself. So keep rereading it. So it's on our website. We'll put the link in the description so you can go get a copy. But Alyssa, thank you. A couple of things that I just really stood out to me was just the openness that you provide, the story of Gabby of just facing every challenge kind of with hope, kind of going through those items, embracing feelings of grief, maybe of sadness or just embracing your feelings, whatever they may be, trying to understand them and then move forward. The fact that you brought
I
up
think
community
also
and
one thing I
yeah, go
wanna
ahead.
bring in too is being able to seek help for yourself. So, like, when we got our diagnosis, my anxiety was on a like, I have never felt anxiety like that, and the fear of the unknown really took a hold of me. Like, I would be up thinking in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep, and I was just so anxious, like, "What if? What if? What if? What if she doesn't do this? What if she doesn't walk? What if she doesn't talk?" Like and then I think I got on some anxiety meds, and that was, like, a game changer for me too, and then just, working out and taking care of myself, I think that really helps, so making sure that, like, if that's just being open to like, being open to some of that, I think, can really help your perspective or, like, help you, you know, be able to not be so overwhelmed. So you can be effective in other areas, if that makes sense.
Allowing help to come your way, advice to come your way, and not, and if you have a wonderful spouse like Alyssa, you have a wonderful partner, but probably more than that, have a network, have
Mhm.
help.
Yeah.
Um, this gift of these children, in my opinion, as a sibling, is that they help make the world better. They
Yes.
make their siblings better, their parents better, but if you allow them to be around a network of people, groups, community members. So these children, in my opinion, my sisters and other special needs children's have brought light and joy. So let that community be there
Yeah.
so that you don't have to do it alone and that they can
Right.
give that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Gabby's doing that. So keep it up, Gabby. We're gonna be
Yeah.
cheering you on when you start getting speaking. You're walking, you're getting some signs in. So anyway, hopefully you could
Yeah.
share that. We'll put that on the website. We'll talk again. Now, I wanted to kind of bring
Yeah.
this up. We've talked about the unique website, how they had some documents. It felt to me like there wasn't much documentation in the scheme of trisomy 9, and I know there's some variations, 9P, 9M.
Mhm.
I'm so excited. Alyssa's been part of a group of parents and medical professionals that work alongside SOFT, that are geneticists and other professionals in the sphere of trisomies, in particular 9, that we're so excited that a Trisomy 9 book is coming our way. So we're going to hear from Alyssa
Yes.
again. Once that book goes live, we're going to get everybody that had quotes and shared pictures, and the doctors that helped contribute to it. We'll do a panel for just the Trisomy 9 book coming up. So Alyssa, we will hear from you again. I'm
Yes.
so grateful for your time. I know it's you don't have a lot of it, so thank you for spending it with us and the
Yes.
Trisomy
I love it.
community. As far as, again, just to wrap up, soft, we're here to support families and help change the narrative. We want to get more stories out there. We want to get more information out there. So in coming months, weeks, episodes, we'll have plenty of parents and families tell their stories. We're going to get more medical professionals. I've got a slew of them kind of on standby, and we'll start having some of those come out. But check out the recent podcast about just the reports that are changing for these children that are declaring that and helping at a medical perspective that these kids and any special needs child needs to be treated as a child, and not don't just lump them into, oh, this is your condition, here are the things you need, but treat every child as a child and look for ways that they can benefit and grow. Because as Alyssa has shared, Gabby is, you got trisomy 9, but she is unique amongst others, right? So look for ways to help our kids, and that's what we're asking for, and that's the narrative we hope to change. So thank you, Alyssa, for sharing that.
Yes.
Thanks for giving
Thank
advice
you for
for
having me.
parents, and what a wonderful time. Um, Stay warm, because it sounds like it's getting colder in Minnesota, but those of
Yes.
you listening, again, we thank you, Alyssa. Check out her book, Mama's Heart. I'll put the link up.
Yeah.
Last thing I was going to say is thank you for listening. Share, comment, repost, do all those things. Help us grow this channel and grow this feed, and help support families and change the narrative for those with trisomies 9, 13, 8, other related disorders. So thank you again. Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa.
Yes. Thanks.